So today we'll be discussing about the unprejudiced observer according to Dr. J.T. Kent. So let us start with understanding the meaning of the word unprejudiced, okay? So unprejudiced means not having or showing unfair bias or prejudice. So that is what it means. We can say in the sense of participants being unprejudiced or any kind of analysis that is unprejudiced. Okay. So let us now understand who is called an unprejudiced observer or physician. A physician who is aware of futility of transcendental speculations means preconceived ideas or notions which he is having inside of him. He should be aware of them. If he cannot totally avoid them, but at least there should be an awareness that a physician must have. Okay. Then he takes note of changes in the health of the body and of the mind which can be perceived externally by means of the senses. Whatever changes are happening in the sick person and in the mind of the sick person, a physician must be able to elicit those changes which are signs and symptoms with the help of his senses. Then he notices only the deviations from the former healthy state of the now deceased individual, which are felt by the patient himself, remarked by those around him, and observed by the physician. So, whatever deviations are occurring, initially the person was healthy, but now the state of the person is going towards sickness. So, he should be able to, notice the changes that have occurred from the healthy state toward to the deceased state, and those changes are also remarked by the patient's relatives, so he should be able to grab those also. All these perceptible signs represent the disease. All these symptoms which are there, which you are seeing in a patient, or the relatives of the patient are seeing in him, all these symptoms which are there, they represent the disease in its whole extent. That is, what do we mean by saying whole extent? It means that together they form the true and only conceivable portrait of the deceased. So this is how we can elicit the portrait of the deceased. These symptoms represent the state of disorder. The sickness is only change of state, and that all physician has to do is correct the disordered state. So what is, as a physician, what is our duty? Our duty is to correct this disordered state, or the economy which has become disordered, the vital force of the individual which has become disordered. We need to give a homeopathic remedy according to the totality of the symptoms, and according to by individualizing the case. So that is how then we will be able to correct this disordered state. Then Hahnemann starts out in this paragraph in aphorism 6 by speaking of the unprejudiced observer. Okay, it would almost seem impossible to find at present time one who could be described thus. Means what? It would be very difficult to define that this person is unprejudiced observer. It is very difficult. Okay. And what Master Kent says is that all men are prejudiced. All men have certain fixed ideas, certain biasness in the way they perceive things. Okay. So man is fixed in the ideas of medicine. Yeah. And because of his prejudice, he cannot reason. So now what is the solution to this? How can we take correct decisions? Okay. And how could we go towards becoming unprejudiced? So men of the present day cannot recognize law, and hence they are prejudiced. One who cannot recognize the law, he is very much into being prejudiced, okay, but once we understand and we follow the laws and principles, and we can rest upon them, so that is how we can become unprejudiced. But when men have authority on which they can rest, which is the authority for us, that is the sixth edition of Organon of Medicine, in which Master Hahnemann has laid all the laws and principles pertaining to the study of homeopathy and how homeopathic practice should be uh, done. So then they can get rid of prejudice. So once we follow the laws and principles that are the that guide us, which our master has written down, so if we follow them, then we can get rid of prejudices. So Master Kent, he gives an example. Suppose we have a large dictionary that we say is an authority on spelling of words. Okay, dictionary is something which is we think is the authority, and if we want to refer to the spelling of a particular word, we go to the dictionary. Sorry. Okay. If a club of 150 men who bought this dictionary and put it into a closet and said, "That is how we agree to spell," that is a recognition by these men that the book is authority. There would be henceforth no argument on the question of spelling, but if there were no authority, no man would spell one way and another man in other way. So if there was no authority, if there was no dictionary, so one person would say that the spelling of, for example, appreciation, okay, so the spelling of appreciation would be something else for one person and it would be something else for some other person, okay. So like I was explaining that a spelling of appreciation would be something else if there was no authority as dictionary for one person, and it would be something else for some other person, okay.
I don't know. Again, it's happening, ma'am.
I know. So let us understand what Master Kent is trying to tell us. Such is the state of medicine at present. There is no standard authority. One book is authority in one school and another school they have another book, so there's a lot of confusion. Men cannot get rid of their prejudices until they settle upon and recognize authority. In homeopathy, the laws and its principles must be accepted as authority. Okay, so what, as homeopathic physicians, what is our duty is that we should follow the rules that are laid by our master Hahnemann to the T, okay? Absolutely, to what he is telling, we should follow them as he guides us. When we know these, it is easy to accept them as authority. But seeing they are not known, there is no authority and everybody is prejudiced, because we do not pay really heed to the words that he has put in sixth edition of Organon, to or to whatever laws and principles our master has guided us towards. We do not really pay heed to them, and we do not accept somewhere as being an authority, and that is why we then tend to become prejudiced. So this is what we must really avoid. Okay. Homeopathy is settled from doctrines and principles. So, men often ask, "Doctor, what are your theories as to homeopathy?" Okay, so even we encounter that people ask us that what is the concept of homeopathy, or what are the theories that are there in your homeopathic science or homeopathic field. Okay, so what Kent rightly says is that I have no theories. It is a thing that is settled from doctrine and principle. So we have doctrine and principles, they are not mere theories. And I know nothing of theory, Master Kent says. Okay, so guys, there are only 10 minutes remaining. If the time slot gets over, I want you all to again rejoin the webinar. Okay. So, Master Kent gives an example to us. A woman came into my office this morning and said, Doctor, I have always been treated by the old school, but the doctors were unable to decide whether the liver made my stomach sick or the stomach made the liver sick. So what did really happen? Okay, she was being treated by old school and she was very confused when she went to Dr. Kent. So this is only confusion, Master Kent says. No organ can make the body sick. Man is prior to his organs. So before our organs become sick, man comes prior to that. So it is the man, it is the vital force, it is the uh, vital principle that has primarily become sick. Parts of the body can be removed and yet man will exist. Okay, if you remove some part of the liver, or if the kidney is diseased and you remove it, but what would happen is that it would not really cure him of the ailment, only the result of the disease will be removed, but the sickness will remain inside. There is no such thing as one organ making another sick, Master Kent is telling us. When we realize that the course of things is from center to circumference, we must admit that the stomach was caused to be in disorder from the center. So at the very first place, there was a central disturbance that was happening inside the body, which has gradually made the stomach sick, and that the liver was caused to be in disorder from the center. And he says that even the liver became sick because there was a central disturbance that had occurred, but not that they made each other sick. Master Kent says it is not that the liver or the stomach were making each other sick. Okay, it was the central disturbance in the first place which made the man sick, and the result which we saw of the disease, that was seen on the stomach and the liver. One who has been taught such ideas cannot get rid of himself of them for a long time. If we keep such ideas in our mind, we cannot get rid of these ideas. So even this is one kind of prejudice which a physician could have. So we need to get rid of that. It is a matter of years to get out of these whims and notions which we have imbibed from our inheritance. So whatever these such ideas we have inherited in us, so we need to get rid of these whims and these preconceived ideas and these notions which we are having in us. In this paragraph, Hahnemann does not speak of changes of tissue or changes in the organs, but change of state. So this is very important. Master Hahnemann is trying to tell us about change of state, and he is not merely speaking of change of tissue or changes in the organs. So this we need to emphasize upon. The unprejudiced observer can see that pathology does not represent the nature of disease. So merely if you give a name to the disease would not mean that this is really the nature of the disease, because numerous so-called diseases can present the same pathology and the same phenomena. Okay, so the pathology could be represented in the same manner. A liver could become sick, the stomach could become sick. Okay, but this does not depict the nature of the disease. So how to get rid of our prejudices? To lay aside all that you have uh, had heretofore imagined or presumed the whims and notions and what I thought about it. You have to get rid of this, what you thought about it. Okay, this is what we should not think. This is not the direction that we should think in. And only what we must do is and only follow after law and principle things that cannot deceive and cannot vary. So if we follow laws and principles laid by our masters, they will never deceive us and they will not vary. Okay, so this is a diagrammatic representation that how could you become an unprejudiced observer by following the laws of homeopathy and principles of homeopathy. What would happen if a physician had prejudiced mind? Okay, so even law will deceive a man if the man is having a prejudiced mind. Because why? Why would this happen? Because then he misreads the law and doctrine. Whatever is laid down in front of us by our masters, if we have a prejudiced mind, then what will happen is that even the things which are written, we will read them in a wrong manner, or we will understand them in a wrong manner because we are having certain preconceived notions. We will not read them as they are. And when things are called black, they look to him white. So this is the exact opposite interpretation which one could have, that things that are there, they are black, and somebody is interpreting them as white. So every image is inverted in his prejudiced mind. By this, Master Kent means that every image is inverted in his prejudiced mind, because he realizes only with his senses and sees with his eyes and feels with his fingers only the appearance of things. Why this is happening is that he is only concerned about the appearance of things, or paying more heed towards, more attention towards only the appearance of things. Just as we say that sun rises judging from the eyes. When we look at the sun, what do we see? That the sun is rising. But although we know that from our intelligence, it is not the sun that is actually rising. Okay. 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 So, next, what Master Kent is telling us is that the senses are variable and no two men will agree in everything. For just as men's observations differ in so different notations and theories will be established. Okay. So, what would happen is that every two men will not agree on the same thing if they are not following a fixed law and principles. Okay, and they would have their own different notions and different theories. We must try to get rid of prejudices that we have been born with and educated into. So we need to get rid of the prejudices which we have been carrying. Okay, and so that we can examine the principles and doctrines of homeopathy and seek to verify them. So, the unprejudiced observer is the only true scientist. This is what Master Kent is telling us. He perceives in each individual affection nothing but change of state. So, this is what we need to really perceive. That is what the change of state. The changes of state are such as are observed by the patient when he says he is forgetful, that his mind does not operate as it did before. Like if the patient said that, since last 2 years I've become very irritable, I do not know what has really happened, but such is the state of my mind. I've become very irritable. I do not feel like doing things. So things like that. So further he says that, what is the changes of state that could be happening, okay, so which we need to observe. When a patient says that, he's very forgetful, that his mind does not operate as it did, that he's often in the state of confusion, that when he attempts to deliver a sentence, a part of it goes away from him. He misses certain words when he's trying to make a sentence. And or he's becoming irritable. There could be another person who has become very irritable, whereas he was pleasant, that he is becoming sad, whereas he was cheerful before. So before, this person was cheerful, but now this person has become really sad, or he could have become very irritable. That there are changes in his affections, in his desires and aversions. So whatever desires or aversions that he is currently having there, or he had before, there's also change in that. These things relate to states. So these symptoms which are of the mind, and there is change in the desires and aversions, okay. So Master Ken says that these are the things which show there is a change in the state, not to the diseased tissues, but to a state of disorder and want of harmony. Dr. Finke expresses it as a distunement. So there's a tune which has gone, which has become distuned. So Dr. Finke expresses it as a distunement. After the patient has related everything he can about his change of state, the physician must be aided by information from outsiders, from relatives who look upon the patient with goodwill, who wish him well. So after you've done consulting with the patient, you could call upon the relatives who wish good for the patient, and you could get some more information from them. Kent, Master Kent says, if the husband be sick, it is well to get the wife's testimony. After the physician has written down all the information in accordance with the directions of aphorism 85 for the taking of the case, which is given in 6th edition of Organon, he then commences to observe as much as he can concerning the disorder. So if we follow these rules or guidelines that are given for the case taking, then we can observe as much as we can get about this disordered state. But more particularly, those things which the patient would conceal or cannot relate or does not know. But we can also find out by observing the patient the things which he cannot tell himself, okay. Like if the patient is his facial expressions are of that of nervousness, then a physician can with his ability of observation, he can also elicit uh, this thing that is coming up in the patient. Many patients do not know they are awkward, that they do peculiar or strange things in doctor's office that they would not do in health, and these are evidences of change of state, okay. So when a patient comes in the consulting, okay, even they are not aware that they are doing such things. Like for example, a patient would be very fidgety and continuously moving his lower limbs, or somebody would be biting the fingernails, or show signs of being really nervous, and would be sweating out of nervousness. So these are the things that even he does not, the patient himself does not recognize, and they are also evidences of change of state. The physician also notes what he sees, like he notes the odors. Are there any odors that are coming up, the sound of organs by examining the various systems in the body, chest sounds, intensity of fever by hands or by thermometer, etc. And when he has gone over the entire image, including everything that can represent the disease, he has secured all that is there of real value to him. So after eliciting everything, all of these things, he can be more sure that he has secured everything that represents the disease in him. How can a physician elicit change of state? Okay, there is nothing in the nature of diseased tissue to pointing a remedy. It is only result of the disease. If we would only see there is a change in tissue, okay, that alone cannot point towards a remedy. Suppose there is an abdominal tumor or a tumor of the mammary gland. There is nothing in fact that it is a tumor or in the aspect of the tumor that would lead you to the nature of change of state. Now friends, the tumor, be it in the abdomen or be it in the mammary gland, this alone will never or it cannot really point you towards the change of state of the individual. The things that you can see, that is the changes in the tissues, are of least importance. This is what Master Kent is telling. But what you perceive in the patient himself, how he moves and acts, his functions and sensations, are manifestations of what is going on in the internal economy. Okay, so this is very, very important. A state of disorder represents its nature to man by signs and symptoms, and these are things to be prescribed upon. So these are the things which will point towards the remedy, and these are the things which we need to prescribe upon. These signs and symptoms which are pointing towards the disordered state of the patient. Then Master Kent gives an example. Take a case which as yet has no pathological change. Okay, there's no pathological change that has really occurred in a patient. Take a case like that. No morbid anatomy. One that has only functional changes. There are only functional changes in this person. The collection of signs and symptoms presents to the intelligent physician the nature of the state, and he is clear as to the remedy. So when this patient is coming to you and he is having only functional changes, no organic changes has yet occurred, so you'll take the sign and symptoms of this patient, you'll form a portrait, you'll individualize the case, and you'll get a remedy. Okay, but if the patient does not receive that remedy, what will happen? The case will go on for a while, perhaps for 2 to 3 years, and when he returns to you on examination, you will find that he has cavities in his lungs or an abscess in his liver or albumin in the urine. So this is what, if we do not correct this functional state, or this functional change that has occurred, if we do not give him the right remedy, what will happen that gradually morbid changes will start occurring, and we could see such results as cavities in the lungs, or if there's an abscess or there's albumin in the urine. Tissue changes do not indicate the remedy. Yeah, and so as physicians we must learn to examine symptoms which are prior to the morbid anatomy. What came before the morbid anatomy, or before the pathological result had occurred in the patient? What came before that, that we need to examine. To go back to the very beginning, we need to go back to the very beginning. Such a patient, as Master Kent has described, must be looked upon as when he was in the simple change of state before matters were complicated. So what happened before things became so severe, or the tissue changes started occurring. So what was before that, the disordered state, that also we need to examine. Our remedies appeal to man before his state has changed into disease ultimates. And these remedies do not change because morbid anatomy has come on. They apply as much after tissue changes as before. So this is what Master Kent is telling us, that even before a man presented you with functional changes, he needed a remedy. And after some changes, after a few years, again he's coming back to you, and the changes are seen in the person. So the remedy would not really, he says that the remedy would not change. What applied then would apply now also, if of course if the disordered state remained the same. If we do not know what the beginnings are, we cannot in an intelligent way treat the endings. So if we do not know what the beginnings were, how did the disease really begin, what was the cause of the disease, what occurred in this person for his vital force to become disordered, for the economy to become disordered, if we do not know what happened in the beginning, we would not uh, treat this patient in a intelligent way till the end. Then Master Kent but also emphasizes upon physical diagnosis. Master Kent explains, indeed there are times where I would strongly encourage the study of morbid anatomy. He should become thoroughly acquainted with the tissues in all conditions, but to study these with the idea that he is going thereby to cure sick folks, or that the thing he picks up at such times are going to be applied in making prescriptions, it is a folly. If one takes it into consideration that finding out the results of this diseases would point him towards the right remedy, then he says that it is a great folly, or this is not going to be really fruitful to find out the remedy for the patient. Master Ken says physical diagnosis is very important in its own place. By means of physical diagnosis, the physician may find out the changes in the organs, how far the disease has progressed. So, onset, duration, progress is very important. So, if we know what is actually happening inside the organ, or the changes are occurring in the tissue, what changes are occurring, so then we can uh, what we say we can elicit what is the progress of the disease, and determine if the patient is incurable. So we also need to differentiate between curable and incurable diseases. So we need to, this will also help us in determining this. It is necessary also in supplying information to boards of health. So we know if there are certain diseases, like for example tuberculosis, so we need to go and give the information that such and such cases found out. So even diagnosing is also important uh, to do that, so that we can go to the board and inform them about the diseases that have come. It may also decide whether you should give curative or palliative treatment. So what treatment will this patient require? Okay, whether it is curative treatment, or if it is incurable, then we need to give palliative treatment. But the study of pathology is a separate and distinct thing from the study of materia medica. So Master Ken says that study of pathology exclusively is separate and distinct from the study of materia medica. When we study materia medica, we need to study the entire phenomena, the change of state that is depicted in the remedies. Now, while the sign and symptoms are the only things that can tell the physician what the patient needs, and while those sign and symptoms relate to change of state and not to the change of tissue, Still, there are signs that relate to tissue changes, and one who is acquainted with symptoms may consider this as indicating change of state. Then, sign and symptoms relate to change of state. This is what we must remember. For example, there are signs that indicate that pus is forming. You get certain signs in a patient where you see in a area, you see that there are signs that now pus is going to form. There are appearances that will lead the experienced physician to know that the results of disease are coming. So one who is experienced would quickly find out that now this is what something is going to happen in this person. These are not valuable things in bunting for the remedy, Mastican says. Now, this alone will not point towards the remedy, but simply indicates certain conditions. It will only indicate certain conditions. The physician must learn to distinguish these from the symptoms that portray state of the patient. Again, Master Kent is telling that we should distinguish these from the symptoms, and we should be more concentrated towards what is the state of the patient and how we can portray the state of the patient. It is important to turn inner disorder into order. If the true inner disorder is turned into order, he will remain cured. This is the only way how a patient or a sick person can be cured, because this order, which is the innermost, will cause to flow into order that which is of the outermost, and finally functions of the body to become orderly. So when we correct this, then what would happen? When the treatment is from cause to effect, there will be correction of the internal disorder. When the internal disorder is corrected, then the functions of the body will also become ordered, or they will become correct, and then the patient will be cured. The vital order will cause tissue order. So once the vital order, the vital force has become ordered, has come into order, then what will happen? The tissues will also start coming into order, because the vital order extends into very outermost of the tissues, and tissue government and order is a vital order. So if the cure is from cause to effect or from within outwards, the patient will remain cured. Now, Master Ken says, what about incurable cases? Okay. In incurable cases, the effects may be removed temporarily or palliated, but the patient himself has not been cured as to the cause. So, in incurable cases, what we could do is remove the signs and symptoms temporarily or palliate them, but it would not mean that the patient is actually cured. And owing to the fact that the patient cannot be cured, the old changes will return and grow stronger, because it is in the nature of chronic diseases to increase or progress. So how do we understand chronic disease? We all know that these diseases, they do not get cured of themselves, and if the chronic disease has gone to such an extent that it has become incurable, then what would happen is that gradually it will keep progressing, or it will increase with time. Certain results of disease which remain after the patient is cured can be removed if unnecessary, but it is not well to remove them before the patient is cured. So the most important thing first is that we need to cure the patient, and if certain results of the disease are remaining, we should think about removing the result of the disease later on, but first curing the patient. Now, how do we understand this? If you, Master Ken says, if you have to deal with a worthless honeycomb knee joint, okay, there's a disease of knee joint, for example, first cure the patient. So whatever disorder that was there in this sick person, you first correct that, take the entire totality and visualize the case. Okay, see, which remedy is pointing towards this case, which is the simillimum. You give this remedy, okay, and then if the knee can never be useful, okay, if there are irreversible changes, then and if the knee can never be useful and the limb is cold and the muscles are flabby, consider the question of replacing it with an artificial one. Then you consider that you can replace it with, or you can ask the patient to go to a surgeon and replace it with a artificial one. If the economy after being turned into health cannot cure the knee, nothing that can be done to the knee can cure to it. So first the economy has to be turned into order. Do not say that patient is sick because he has white swelling. Now this is another example Master Kent is telling. He says that the physician must not tell that certain there's a white swelling that is seen, and because of this the person is sick, but that white swelling is there because the patient is sick. Why this has occurred, why this white swelling has come up? Because at the first place this person was sick. Okay, so now let us just revise uh, the aphorism that is given by Master Hahnemann in 6th edition of Organon. The unprejudiced observer, well aware of the futility of transcendental speculations which can receive no confirmation from experience, be his powers of penetration so great, takes note of nothing in individual disease except the changes in the health of the body and of the mind. So he says that we should get rid of all the speculations or preconceived ideas that we were having inside of us, in the minds of us, and we should take we should take note of the things or changes that have occurred in the mind and body of the patient, the morbid phenomena, the accidents, the symptoms, everything. So these all things we need to take into consideration, which can be perceived externally by means of the senses. So a physician with his senses can perceive these things. That is to say, meaning what? He notices only the deviations from the former healthy state of the now deceased individual. So what were the changes when the patient was initially healthy and now the disordered state is there? So we need to identify that also, which are felt by the patient himself. Now these changes the patient himself is feeling, and therefore he is telling to you, remarked by those around him. These changes which occurred from health to disease, these changes are also noticed by people surrounding him, his relatives or friends. They can also tell these things and observed by the physician, and whatever the physician is observing, all these perceptible signs represent the disease in whole extent. That is, together they form the true and only conceivable portrait of the disease. So this is what is the meaning of unprejudiced observer. I hope you all have followed. Thank you very much.